it's time to pull the taxi into the driveway on the Old Blue Garage 8 o'clock hour. That's right. Old Blue's Garage bringing you the 8 o'clock hour when it comes to your car, truck, SUV. They're out there at 1420 380 bypass on the Highway 380 bypass. And right now they're doing $39.95 front-end alignments. Yeah, $39.95 for front-end alignment on your vehicle. Call 549-1570, 549-1570. Make an appointment with Raphael. Get out there and get that done. That's what they do at Old Blue's Garage, taking care of business when it comes to your vehicle. But right now, $39.95 on those front-end alignments. So go check it out. Well, the taxi pulls up every Wednesday, and Joe, the Bryan insurance guy, gets out. And we're going to be talking a little insurance stuff this morning.
It's always good to talk insurance bright and early in the morning, right?
Yes, that's one of the things that I look forward to each week is getting to discuss what is going on in the world of insurance, since I know Zippo about it, and it does inform me and helps me out. Now, you got kids that folks that are always right now looking for a little extra money.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's one of the big things, Christmas time, and everybody's looking for a little extra cash here and there. One way to do it is this real popular site or app you can load on your phone, Uber. And some different ways that you can earn a little cash. You turn it on when you want to make money. You turn it off when you don't want to make money.
Yeah.
But
there's always a catch to it.
There's always a catch to everything.
It's amazing that we've seen here in the past, it's probably been the past 2 or 3 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. We don't obviously see it here in Graham, but you start going to the big cities, New York, Miami, LA, San Francisco, things like that. And the idea behind it is these what they call ride-sharing type services. You've got Uber, you've got Lyft. There may be a few other ones out there, a few offshoots of that as well. But the basic premise behind it is, you've got, you typically go to New York City or, any of your major cities. Let's go New York, Boston, Chicago. You've got taxis where, you hail a taxi. Those guys, they pick you up, they take you. Everybody knows what a taxi is. But those guys are, they're licensed to do that from an insurance perspective, driver's license perspective, all that. So in steps companies like Uber and Lyft, and the idea behind them is very tech-savvy company in that you've got an app on your phone that you can download. And say you're in downtown Chicago and you've got to get out to the airport or you've got to get from one side of town to the other and you don't want to mess with a taxi, you can call Uber. Or you can open up your app and you can say, hey, I'm here and I need to go there, and they'll send somebody to you. And the sites or the apps are, pretty user-friendly. They'll typically show you who's around in your area. They've even integrated it into like Apple Watches and stuff so you can see, who's near me. Hey, I want that particular driver. Usually it'll show up with the driver's picture and what the driver is driving. And you'll discuss a fare or rate and you agree on that and they'll take you from one place to the other. The flip side of that, there's always a flip side, and the other side of the pillow, so to speak, with that is how does that impact the driver from an insurance perspective? So looking at your personal auto policy, when you have a personal auto policy, you are covered for the risk of driving back and forth to work. Maybe it's a pleasure vehicle that you just use on the weekends and nights and weekends and stuff like that. Or there's also categories where you can use it for business. And when we say business use, it's for things like if you're an outside sales guy and that's your primary mode of transportation to push, if you're an outside salesperson moving around, things like that. Or you may use a pickup truck, for example, while through the course of your construction business or something like that. So there's some personal auto coverage for that. But there is no coverage for you for hire. And when we say for hire, what that means is I'm not talking about, hey, Rick tells me this morning, hey, can you run me out to Albany real quick because I got to get a doctor's appointment. I don't have a ride. Can you run me up there real quick? I'll buy you a cup of coffee. In the purest sense, that's for hire, but it's not going to be a huge issue, really.
Right.
Running a buddy up there every now and then type of a thing. But in a situation where, and we've talked about this before, in a situation where you've got young college kids on campuses trying to, like you say, pick up a few extra bucks, the issue arises because as soon as that kid or person decides, hey, I want to drive for one of these ride-sharing services, it's not like the owners of the vehicle are notified. If your parents own the car, it's not like the parents are notified to say, hey, we've got this car, and there's no coverage for that. So let's play this scenario out. Little Johnny says, hey, I want to make a few extra bucks. I'm going to sign up with Lyft, or I'm going to sign up with Uber, and I'm going to move people around nights and weekends so I can pick up a few extra coins for books and study materials.
Right.
So he throws himself on Uber. Somebody says, hey, I want to go ahead and hire little Johnny. And Johnny goes over and picks him up, says, hey, where are you going? I'm going 5 miles down the road. Great, let's get in, let's go. 2 miles down the road, there's an auto accident. The problem then becomes, regardless of who's at fault, let's pretend little Johnny's at fault, or maybe he's not even at fault, but there's an auto accident and there's damage to Johnny's vehicle. So how does this play out? Not only is there damage to Johnny's vehicle, but the passenger that's in Johnny's car is hurt as well. So how does this play out? There's no coverage for the car itself because it was used not for the intended purposes of driving to and from school and work. It was being used for hire. And so there's no coverage for that. And that's always a nice little shocker that folks don't realize. The other issue you're going to run into is, are you properly licensed to do that? Because essentially what you're doing when you join up with these services is you're driving for hire, similar to a taxi. Taxis have to take out a commercial insurance policy to cover them for not only liability but damage to their auto and stuff like that. So there are commercial auto policies that will cover you, but your personal auto policy has no coverage for that. So not only would there be no coverage for the damage to your vehicle, but the passenger that, unbeknownst to them, hey, they just hired this service. They're just trying to get from point A to point B. It's not their problem. Hey, do you have proper insurance and all that? And so they're hurt. How does that work? Well, they're probably going to come after you on a personal liability issue because they're damaged. Their back's messed up, their neck's messed up, something like that. They want, reimbursement for their injuries and stuff, and there's not going to be any coverage. So there's two instances right there where you're just kind of left stuck. The few extra bucks that you picked up is not worth what the nightmare that you're going to have to deal with going forward. So long story with all of this, but it's one of those things that it's a great idea. But you've seen in a lot of cities where the taxi cab companies are saying, hey, some people look at it and say, oh, they just don't want the competition. It's not so much the competition as it is the taxi companies have to go through the process of getting the proper licensing, the proper credentialing, and the proper insurance to be able to take folks on a taxi service from point A to point B, whereas these Uber folks and other – and we're not singling out Uber. That's just the most common one that
everybody knows. That's just what everybody knows.
Yeah, it's just the one everybody knows. So they're not the folks that do that are not necessarily getting a commercial driver's license. They're not getting a commercial auto policy to cover the risks for hire transportation. So it's just one of those things that you need to make sure that if your kids are going off to college with a family vehicle or a vehicle that you own, or even if they own it themselves, and they throw around the idea, hey mom, hey dad, I thought about doing this. Got to sit them down and say that's not the policy that your policy doesn't cover you for that. If that's something that you want to do, we need to go make sure we have the right policy, because it's all fun and games until the accident happens.
Right.
Nothing's ever going to happen, and then the accident happens. And what's weird is that we've seen a real rise in these types of app-based services, so to speak. I saw some the other day talking about how they're migrating not only from these for-hire transportation to and from with people, but they've also started up these companies where one of them is called Burrow. I think they've got it down in Austin, where basically it's like me. A guy in his pickup truck will move a couch for you, and it's the same type of thing. There's an app. There's a per mileage fee. There's a show up fee. If you want us to load it, there's a little extra fee, stuff like that. We're not talking about moving whole houses or things like that. It's, hey, I got a couch that I got to get from a buddy's house down to my house, and I don't have a truck. I want to hire you to take it from there to here, and I'm going to pay you to do that. That's a for hire, and that gets into a whole other ball of wax, because state of Texas, there's specific rules for folks that move and transport household goods. It's not a situation where Rick says to me, now Rick has a truck, he has a camper shell on his truck or a cover on his truck.
It's a bed cover.
Bed cover.
Yes.
But Rick says to me, hey, I got this big armoire that I got to move from Ann's house to my house, and I can't fit it in my truck. Joe, can we run out there and pick it up? You and I will load it up, take it out. No big deal. But it's when you make yourself available for hire, not only does coverage for your vehicle, and part of this movement, especially when you're dealing with folks like this Burrow app, it's not so much that you're taking the person and their goods, it's you're taking their goods for hire. So person's not in the vehicle with you, but their armoire is back there, and you get into an accident, and it's the adjuster's going to come out and say, okay, what were you doing? Well, I was taking it from here to here. Okay, well, why were you doing that? Oh, because I'm on this service. Okay, well, then there's not going to be coverage for that. And a lot of folks say, oh, I'll just lie to them. They'll never find out. Well, okay, they will. And that's the problem that you run into is there's always a way. There's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. And that's the big thing that we're stressing is don't go into these things blind thinking, it'll be covered, nothing will ever happen. Because things do happen, because we've seen it in the news. You can read the reports where there were accidents and people thought they were covered and they weren't. So it's all about the same thing that we preach every single week. Making sure you're covered the way you need to be, making sure you look at the risks that are involved. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Am I covered for that? Let's look at some options, and just, making sure that if there is an issue that you're not left, kind of holding the bag.
If someone legitimately is wanting to be into this business.
Correct.
And they say, look, okay, I understand my personal auto policy does not cover this thing, but I want to legitimately be in this business. They need to call you and get the right type coverage.
Get the right coverage, exactly. Make sure that the coverage is there. Make sure your licensing is there. If you want to get into the business of moving household goods on the weekend, nights and weekends, pick up a few extra bucks, let's make sure the coverage is there as well, not only for the vehicle that you're driving, but let's make sure there's some cargo coverage, which I believe the state of Texas requires you to have some form of cargo coverage for the goods that you're moving back and forth as well. So it's all about making sure the coverage is there, making sure that the right coverage is there, and talking to somebody who knows what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, that's the main thing, is that you can't take someone's advice that's not licensed,
exactly,
that hasn't been in the business and doesn't know what's going on. Because, it's easy to say, hey, so-and-so down there, he knows an insurance agent, or he used to work at an insurance company a long time ago. Well, things change daily.
Oh, they do.
As far as laws and rules go. And, it's the best thing to do is call somebody, talk to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
And don't just go checking out websites either.
Oh, boy, I'm telling you, you can find a lot of stuff on the websites these days. It's amazing when you look at websites and Google searches and all that. I mean, you could find an answer to anything that you want, and you could find 50 different answers for the same question. And they're all claiming that they're right. So it's one of those things that this is something that's evolving, that obviously wasn't around 5-10 years ago, that we're seeing. And what's amazing is that you see events in the world happen, whether it's the terrorism aspect that we've seen over the past couple of months, or it's things like the Uber situation, the Burrow situation. All these things start popping up. And as an insurance agent, we get there's bulletins and stuff that we get of, okay, so now this has happened. So from an insurance perspective, how are we going to address that? How are we going to cover that? And a lot of it comes down to folks want to know, oh my gosh, who's paying the bill for this, from a standpoint of there's been an accident because I'm an Uber driver. Now who pays? And insurance companies and agents and so forth have to maneuver around that. So it's always a good idea. Get it checked out. Talk to somebody who knows what the heck they're doing, and make sure you're covered the way you need to be.
Give them a call today at 549-2525. That's Bryan Insurance Agency. Been in business in Young County, serving the Young County, Lake Country area for almost 100 years. On the second floor of the Sierra Bank Building. And make sure you get over there and get everything done and cover the way you need to be. Joe, appreciate your time, my friend.
Hey, thank you, Rick.
And we're going to put the taxi back into gear, and we're going to get this 8 o'clock hour going with Old Blues Garage. We got Kid Rock coming up, and look at sports. Stay tuned.
Q 94.7.